I think that a lot of people are not intellectually honest or are intellectually lazy when it comes to these type of topics. So one of the things you hear all the time, I'm sure you get this all the time, is oh, most wars are fought because of religion. I'm
Yeah,
just like, that's complete. That I'm like, that is utterly false. Like
there there's
that's
a great
completely false.
there's a great book
Go
called The
ahead.
Myth of Religious Violence by William Cavanaugh. And every historian I've ever talked about the history of religion and wars, atheists, Christians, Jews, you name it, have always said, yeah, just read that book. That explains it all. So it's
Mm.
like just one of the most highly cited books in this. And so, yeah,
Yeah,
it's nonsense.
it's also just like, bro, look at the last century. Look at the previous century and tell me which ideologies led to the mass slaughters and genocides of people. Like, it wasn't Mao and Stalin and Hitler and Pol Pot, and all these dudes were not these were not sort of people trying to spread their faith. They were deeply ideological,
Mm-hmm.
extremely ideological and extremely tribal. But this is like, these are guys trying to do ethnic cleansing, people starving tens, hundreds, potentially hundreds of millions of people to death. And it's strange that people don't just look at that and just see, okay, maybe I need to analyze this. Have there been religious wars? Yes, absolutely. And that would be
Mm-hmm.
ridiculous to deny that. I think another thing that happens with a lot of these conversations is I find that people often don't consider the counterfactual, right? So people don't think, okay, are there people who commit violence in the name of religion? And have there been? Yes, absolutely. Can't deny it. It's a fact. Um, However, what about have people ever stopped to consider how much potential? Look, human beings we're a violent species, man. A very potentially very violent species. How much of that how much of that potential violence has been prevented because people are religious and people do value human life in a certain way and do see other people as living images of God and so on, right? Like, people don't consider that. And look, we can't know the exact facts because we haven't sort of run this scenario. It's a little bit like when it comes to the conversations about gun violence in America, right? People rarely consider, okay, well, how much is prevented? How much crime is prevented? How many killings are prevented? How much of that is prevented by uh, people having guns, right? And you can never know it exactly because the incidents didn't occur. Um, but from what I've seen, according to studies I have seen, it's like, actually, oh, there's more defensive uses than there are offensive uses, right? And so yeah, I just think in this case, people don't really do the thinking and genuine consideration. They have in their idea, okay, well, religion bad. I don't like religion. Religion bad. So therefore, let me take like the worst and most extreme examples of all of it and act like that's just normal. Like, let me pretend that the average Christian or the average Muslim or the average Jew or the average Hindu is like some extreme genocidal maniac who wants to, it's just like, man, I'm aware that terrible people exist, right? And sadly, there's terrible people who exist who call themselves, religious or Christian or Muslim or whatever it is, and they violate the most basic tenets of what they're supposed to believe in. But can we also not pretend that this is like some type of norm or average, or that the vast, vast, vast majority of people who are of faith do not absolutely and utterly condemn that and want to not even be associated with it? People do the same thing. Oh, well, Zuby, what about the Catholic Church, right? What about like this thing that happened? I'm like, dude, I'm not going to sit here and defend. I'm not here trying to defend these actions, but can we also not pretend that like the average Catholic, let alone Christian, um, is sort of condoning that or is supporting? Like, they will condemn it even harder because they don't want that to even be the face or even associated with their faith.
Yeah, in sociology, it's called a bivariate means comparison. You just look at two factors and you assume they're related. So we
Mm.
see that in the summer, for example, more people eat ice cream, but also sexual victims increase as well in the summer.
Mm.
Well, it's not because eating ice cream leads to more sexual abuse. It's that it's the summer, more people are out, people are wearing less clothes. And so, people don't want to go out and try to attack someone when it's cold outside. They tend to do it more in the summer. So we take a bivariate means comparisons when you just look at two variables and assume there's a connection. People do this all the time with religion. And you got to do a multivariate analysis, which is a lot of the sociological research I cite. Just because we may find two things connected, that doesn't mean that one causes the other. That's a correlation is not causation issue. For example, people tend to assume that religiosity leads to more LGBTQ prejudice. Now, look, I'm not in favor of that lifestyle, but I don't think we should be prejudiced against them. So there was a study done in Brazil, and there have been some done in America, where they looked at this with more variables. And they found that religiosity was not tied to prejudice of LGBTQ individuals. It was tied more to traditionalism and right-wing authoritarianism, these two other variables. So they were correlated, religiosity and prejudice, but one was not positively associated. So it's very unlikely to be the cause. In fact, they noted that when you factor in these other two variables, traditionalism and right-wing authoritarianism, religiosity was actually negatively correlated with prejudice. So, you just can't assume religious person do bad thing, therefore religion's the cause. I could do the same thing. Think of vegans who've committed terrorism. The veganism cause it. Their brains are screwy. They're not getting enough protein. I mean, people make that claim, but you can't do that. Not everything a vegan does is caused by their veganism. And likewise, not everything a religious person does is caused by their religiosity. Oftentimes, people are actually doing things because they want to gain power, money, they're angry, and then they'll claim religion is the actual reason, like some crazy person. Just because someone claims that doesn't mean that's the actual thing causing it. We got to study this more, look at their psychology, see what's actually leading to it. And of course, there's nothing in the teachings of Christianity or nothing in the teachings of Christ that would make you think that Christians are supposed to go out and commit violence or go out and attack people. It talks about you're going to be persecuted for my name's sake. It talks about, if you go and you present the gospel and they reject it, dust the sandals off, move to the next town. It talks about apostates in Christianity, and it just says they exist. And it sucks, but I mean, that's just the way it is. We can't go out and do anything about it because that God will be their judge. So, I mean, there's nothing in the tenets of Christianity that would make you think that it would lead to violence. And of course, the sociological research bears that out.